everyone. Welcome to the Globe podcast. I'm here with a very exciting guest today. I have David from Rapid Reboot. And before we kind of jump into conversation, if you are new here, we are Tailored Marketing and we partner with organizations in the healthcare, wellness, and longevity space to fuel growth through strategic marketing strategies. So if you are interested, drop a comment below. David, thank you so much for coming on. I'm so excited to have you here today. If you would, I would love if you would just give a little bit of an introduction so the listeners know who you are.
Thanks, Taylor. I'm excited to be here with y'all as well.
Yeah.
My name is David Jack. I work with Rapid Reboot for the last 2 years as their director of partnerships. Kind of a little background on me that kind of led to where I'm at now is I am an athletic trainer. So I worked in the sports medicine sphere for over 12 years. From Utah originally, did my undergraduate work at the University of Utah. While I was there, I did an internship with the San Diego Chargers for a summer, spent a preseason and training camp with them to get some good experience. I went to Fresno State for grad school. I worked with their football program for the 2 years, where we had some really good teams that year. Went on and spent a year in Indianapolis with the Indianapolis Colts, and then from there to the University of Georgia for 7.5 years with their football program. So some great teams there, some great high-level players, a lot of fun games that we played in. And then from there, I went to the University of Southern California for 2 years as their head football athletic trainer, so 2021 to 2023. It was a great time to be able to work with athletes, get to know them on an individual level, and kind of see the whole gamut of healthcare as we're able to work with, very closely with our physicians, but basically working with healthcare professionals in every sphere, because it truly was a team effort to get our athletes back on the field, even though as athletic trainers, we were the ones that were with them almost 24/7, it felt like at times. We still got to work with everyone and get to know everyone, which was awesome. Great relationships there, but it got to the point where that's a very demanding setting to work in. I was working a lot of hours. I didn't have very many days off. So I decided it was time for a change. And over the years, I'd used a lot of modalities with my athletes. Basically, everything you can think of, I've probably used it on my athletes. If it's doing emerging technologies, especially at Georgia and USC, we were some of the first ones to adopt it because people wanted those big name schools to use it. And so we got to use a lot of it. So that's how I got introduced to Rapid Reboot and their pneumatic compression devices. Compression really has come a long way in compression therapy over the last 15 years or so. I remember when I first got into athletic training, you'd have maybe one pneumatic compression device in an athletic training room. Now most have recovery areas with 10 to 15 and sometimes even more. There's one school we work with that has 350 systems for their athletes to use to help with recovery. So I got to know Rapid Reboot pretty well. In 2017 when they first started, we used some of their original devices when I was in Georgia. And they were good products. There were a couple of issues with durability and different things then. And being from Utah, I got to know the owner who was from Utah as well, and we kind of connected being from the same place. And I gave honest feedback on what I liked about the product, what I didn't like about the product. And he really respected that and listened to what I had to say. And when I went to the University of Southern California, they had just come out with a new unit called the Regen, and they're like, hey, we want to send this to you. Honestly, I looked at it and said, you know what, I'm going to give you some feedback. I was a little bit skeptical, to be frank, but they kind of appreciated my honesty. They sent me a system and I loved it. I thought it was one of the best ones on the market with some of its features of compression going twice as high as other systems, of being more customizable. I found ways that I could use it not just for recovery like people had been preaching it for a lot of years in athletics, but also for warm-up. I could use it for swelling control, helping, especially when there are big injuries and acute injuries. I could be a little more precise on my pressures to help with decreased swelling. So I really liked it. And then I started letting my athletes try it because, it's one thing if I like it, but the athletes are the ones that are using it on a daily basis. So I needed that testimonial from them as well. So I started letting a few try it and they really liked it. And it got to the point where I would have a couple, systems of other brands that were waiting in the athletic training room that were open. And I would have some athletes that would wait in line to use my one Rapid Reboot system.
Oh my God.
And it was awesome. At that time, I didn't have a stake in Rapid Reboot, didn't have the interest. I just wanted to provide the best care for my athletes. And so they liked it. We had a new coaching staff come into USC while I was there. They were familiar with some other brands other than Rapid Reboot. I introduced them to Rapid Reboot, and we ended up buying a number of units for the football program to use because some of the coaches that I worked with and some of our players that I worked with all said they would rather the Rapid Reboot system. So we got a bunch. And so that really helped me to buy in when I had these high-level athletes that, going on to the NFL, first-round draft picks that were loving this product. I'm like, there's something here there. This is great. And so when I made that transition to decide that it was time for a career change. I wanted to move back to be closer to family in Utah, and Rapid Reboot found I was moving out to Utah. They were based about 15 minutes from where all my family is, so they said, come join our team. And it was a great opportunity because they had a lot of engineers, a lot of salespeople on staff. But as a medical professional, someone who'd used it in that setting with athletes, spoke that language, understand what athletes needed, it was really a good fit for both of us to be able to be there and allow me to still use that expertise and that athletic training experience that I'd gained over 12 to 15 years and still use that stuff without losing it all. And so it's been a really good fit, and it's allowed me to work with so many different people in different aspects and just spread the word about how this modality can help people on a day-to-day basis, not just athletes too.
Yeah, no, that's such a cool story, and it's so funny that that's kind of how you came across it, was like you were just using it for yourself, using it for your athletes, giving them feedback, because so many people, like especially if it's new or if you're getting stuff like from a company, you almost like don't want to give them feedback because you're like scared to, kind of almost.
Yeah.
But like people really appreciate it, especially if it's something new, like when you are giving them feedback. I feel like they're like, oh, okay, like this person actually cares, like they want to help, they want to make it better.
Yeah, that's been a really nice aspect. And our owner is an engineer, but he did Ironmans. And that's how he kind of came across technology and said, there's got to be a way to make it better. And so he really welcomed that feedback. And we're still looking at ways to kind of fine tune it or write protocols that can really help people out. It's been a great collaborative group to be able to work with here on that aspect.
That's awesome. Yeah, and so I guess could you talk like just a little bit more to the technology that you all are using at Rapid Reboot? I know it's the compression therapy technology, but can you talk to just like a little bit more about how it's maybe different from other products that are on the market, or kind of what sets you all apart from what else is out there?
Yeah, no problem. So I'll kind of explain in case anyone's not familiar with pneumatic compression. Basically what it is, the one that's most common is a boot. So the boot is something that comes on the full leg, goes from the toe all the way up to the hip and groin area. And it's going to fill up sequentially, starting distally, working proximally, meaning it's going to start at the foot, it's going to compress the foot, and kind of like a big, large blood pressure cuff. And then it's going to move on to the calf, and then the knee, and then the thigh. And it does that, it increases your blood flow to the area, and it's also going to help with lymphatic drainage, so helping assist your body's natural drainage system, which is a huge thing because the lymphatic system works mainly through gravity, muscle contraction. So things like massage and compression can really help aid that as your body's trying to recover, because there's going to be that metabolic waste that likes to sit there after workout. What sets us apart is our pressures go twice as high as our competitors. So most of the other name brands on the market only go up to about 100 millimeters of mercury pressure, and whenever my athletes were using those, they would always max it out at that top level. They were always asking for more pressure and more pressure. And so we go up to 200 millimeters of mercury. Now, I haven't had too many athletes that like it at 200 because that is intense. That's imagine you get the blood pressure cuff all the way to the top right before they start letting it down, checking your blood pressure. That's about what 200 millimeters mercury is. But it's compressing your whole leg at once. So that's a lot. To be quite frank, the ones that I saw that liked that the most were my Polynesian athletes who kind of thrived on the pain and discomfort.
Yeah.
Most athletes and most just even people that are, weekend warriors, I found that sweet spot is the 120 to 150 range, where they feel like it's good pressure, where it's getting that flush that they feel they want, but it's not. It's kind of going right up to that pressure to pain ratio line, which is great. And then the other nice thing with ours is you can customize everything on the regen unit. So it's a nice touchscreen model that's easy to use. You can look at it and you can just tap the thing and you can adjust every chamber individually. So one of the things that I really like is I can do a true gradient. So I can do like 150 millimeters mercury at my foot, 140 millimeters at the thigh, 120 or 140, 130 at the knee, and 120 at the thigh. So I can have a little bit more. I personally like having a little bit more pressure farther down the leg because then it's really pushing that swelling out a lot better. Yeah. So those are things I like. And if depending on what you want to do, you can be a lot more precise in how you're feeling in that activity. If I'm using with someone right after an injury, I might have a lower pressure of 30 to 40 millimeters mercury as I'm trying to just slowly get that swelling pushed out of the injury area. So I can be a lot more precise on those things. And different people have different sensitivities to pressure, and so you can adjust those body parts as you want based on personal preferences as well.
Yeah.
Those are really great. Another thing that sets us apart is we have different modes of compression. So you can do just one chamber at a time, always going to work from the foot towards the heart. Or you can do a full mode, which means as the foot fills up, then the calf fills up, it stays filled, and as the calf fills up, knee, and then as the thigh. And then once the whole boot is filled, it's going to relax. Or more peristaltic modes that work similar to like how your guts push food through your digestive system. So it would be basically 2 chambers at a time filled as it's working its way up. And then you can add a little pulse for that as well, which are great because then if you want to do more of a passive warm-up to increase blood flow to the area, that's something that you can do. I actually had an athlete once that would, before games, sit in the boots and he'd just kind of be listening to his music, laying on the ground with his feet in the air and wearing the boots to get that blood flowing before he went out on the field.
That's awesome. Yeah, there's so many use cases for it. And like, it sounds like yours, like the Rapid Reboot, is a lot more versatile basically than like what else is out there on the market. You can kind of customize it based on where you're at. Maybe you just had an injury, like you said, and you don't want as much compression because it's probably kind of painful. So you can adjust that better kind of than what else is out there on the market. And so obviously as an athlete, as college or professional athlete, this would be something that you would use, but you also mentioned kind of the weekend warriors. And so I guess who would that kind of look like? Would it be people who are active, you know, runners, hikers, mountain bikers, that kind of thing?
All of the above. So we've had a lot of success with marathoners.
Yeah.
We do a lot of marathons where we'll set up recovery areas at the end so they can try our products and see how beneficial it is. I've actually read a peer-reviewed study where they did, after a marathon, they had half the group do a recovery massage and half the group do compression boots. And they found their subjective outcome measures were virtually the same. So it's a way that you can get that massage-like feel, get your legs feeling good after a long run without having a massage therapist on retainer or in your house. So that's a nice feature. We have a lot of cyclists and people that do spin classes on a regular basis that are really big into using the product. Like, anyone who's truly active can benefit from it. And that's one of the great things is this therapy. You know, I really first saw it in the athletic training room 15 years ago, and it wasn't very publicly known. As it started to spread, it kind of trickles out there and people realize how beneficial it can be. I've even had people purchase it with our hip attachment and use it a week after hip replacement surgery. And they said it made a big difference helping decrease their swelling so that they could get moving a lot quicker and back to their day-to-day activities.
Yeah, no, that's such a good point. Like using it after surgery or for like an injury or something like that. Even like inflammation, like even something I'm just thinking with like tendinitis or something like that would be really beneficial as well.
Yeah, I was actually talking to my brother the other day who's training for a marathon and had a little tendinitis going on in his hip. And we talked about, you know, use this before you go out because it's going to increase that blood flow and help that elasticity a little bit better. So it's not going to be as painful that first mile of your run.
Yeah. No, that totally makes sense. That's super awesome. There's so many different use cases for it. And like the thing too, like you said, is obviously you purchase it, but then you have it for forever.
Yeah.
So do you guys kind of have different, like I know you mentioned the leg, like the boot leg, but are there other ones for other parts of your body, like arm and things like that too?
Yes. So we have an arm attachment that's been very popular with baseball, volleyball, softball as of lately because it goes the whole arm, covers all the way up through your shoulder, almost right up to your neck, and then covers your posterior and anterior shoulder girdle real well too. So it's getting your kind of your pec into your shoulder blade and all that, which is really good. Pitchers, we were at a baseball event a couple weeks ago, and the pitchers there absolutely loved it. And we couldn't get enough of it, both for warm up and recovery.
Believe it.
And then I kind of mentioned our hip attachment. That one's a great one as well because it's a little bit bigger than our competitors. Most of our competitors have a 2-chamber hip attachment. Ours is 4, and it covers a greater area. So it's going to go kind of right above the knee, mid-thigh area to all the way up to about your belly button, covering your low back. So it's got 4 chambers for your thigh, your lower hip, your upper hip, and then kind of into your abdomen. So that can be great for hip issues, low back issues, where you can slide a little hot pack in there to get a compression heat on there for the low back and feel great as well.
That's super cool. Yeah, no, that's awesome. And so I guess like how are most people kind of finding out about you guys right now? Like is it primarily like within colleges and like within professional sports where athletes are finding out about y'all, or how are you kind of getting the word out right now?
You know, it's a little bit of everything, to be honest. And that's one of the reasons they brought me on was to kind of help with that athletic sphere in the college and the professional markets. And we're making a lot of progress there in the last couple of years because there's other brands that are are better known just because they've been around longer. They were kind of the original ones on the market. They're the quote unquote name brand. But as
Yeah.
we get people trying our product, they're seeing that it's better, and we get the vast majority that are switching to ours once they're able to try it. Now,
Yeah.
the hard thing is beating against that name brand that's been out there for years. Kind of like everyone calls facial tissues Kleenex because they were the first one on the market. And so
Yeah.
it's kind of the same thing that we face. So we kind of going out and hitting the ground, going to different colleges and universities, but also, like I mentioned, I have colleagues that go to marathons frequently. I'm doing a
Yeah.
ultimate Frisbee event this weekend in
That's so
Utah where they've
fun.
got national teams coming in. We're going to just help set up a recovery area for them that they can try. A little bit on social media where I'll do different things with some, professional athletes, college athletes, where we'll do deals where they'll do some social media shout outs for us and it's really ones that are finding us because they like our product and have heard of us and they want to help shout out our name. So word of mouth is a big aspect, and then just kind of getting out and hitting the ground and trying different events, different things, getting around with different people. Doing things like this are great ways for us to kind of help get our name out there.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, and it sounds like too, like once people try it, they're like, okay, like they see why it's better almost. Like
Yeah.
it's just kind of getting them to try it or switch over, because once you're just kind of in your way, it's like if you're using something every day or like a few times a week, you're not likely to change your routine unless there's kind of a reason.
Yeah, exactly. And we had that with a local guy who he's very into cycling. He does spin classes that he teaches a lot, and 200 miles a week on his bike minimum sometimes. And
Yeah.
he found out through a friend about our stuff, came into the office and tried it out. And he immediately bought ours and resold his old system that was a different brand because he saw that significant difference right away.
That's super cool. Yeah, and I'm sure there's probably a lot of different stories like that, even like you were saying when you were a coach too, like you had your players lined up to use it
Yeah.
as well.
It's kind of funny. I had an athlete that's playing in the NFL that he was a high round draft pick, and was talking to him once after he ran into him in a game, was able to go support him. He said, we have another brand in our training room, and I keep telling our athletic trainers they need to switch because they don't realize how much better yours is. And it's just that nice, like going in and spreading the word that they see that difference and they can help share it with others.
No, that's awesome. That's super, super cool. And so what are kind of the goals for Rapid Reboot over like the next year? Where do you guys kind of see yourselves in a year from now, or what's kind of on the horizon over there?
The biggest thing is, again, just continue to get our name out there, finding ways to hit the ground, to go to different events, to visit different people and help them know that we're out there. We're working on a couple different systems so we can have kind of different levels of models that we have to share with people that are different price points, so they can still have the big features that really set us apart, but maybe at a little bit lower price point that we want to be able to reach people in a different way. So we're working on spreading that, but just continuing to work with people, or whether it be getting on podcasts, working with agencies and their athletes specifically, whatever. We're it's throwing everything at it to try to get our name out there with the small team that we have.
Yeah, just getting your name out there more and getting people to try it too, like you said, I'm sure is a big thing. So like for that, you have to be kind of in person and with people as well.
Yeah. And slowly just getting better name recognition. That's one thing that I've seen over the last 2 years since I've been here. There's been a significant increase in our name recognition. And so that's been a huge part. And as we start getting farther and farther with that helps us compete with some of those other brands that are out there, as that name recognition increases even more each year.
Yeah, no, definitely. I feel like that's important because, like, especially with something like you were talking about where there are other brands as well, but it's getting your name out there. So, like, people are saying Rapid Reboot rather than, like, concussion,
Exactly. And one of the other great things that sets us apart is our control units. We actually build in our warehouse here in Utah. So we're an American company. We do as much as we can here in our warehouse. Obviously, we do have to source some things overseas because that's just how things work in our economy with different products. But we're able to actually build our computer boards, build our pumps and attachments in our warehouse. So it's a great thing to be able to say, hey, we build it as you order it and we make it straight for you.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's super, super cool. So let everybody know, what is the best way to find Rapid Reboot online? What is the best way to kind of learn more about the product? I will also include all the links in the show notes as well for easy access.
Awesome. So rapidreboot.com is our website that's got a lot of good information there. You can follow us on Instagram at Rapid Reboot. So pretty easy to find, just our name. You can also reach out to me if you have any interest. My email is djack@rapidreboot.com. I'm happy to talk with people individually about what they want and answer them. I think that's one of the great things about having a small team is we can have a little bit more of that personal touch. And then I'll also create a discount code that your listeners can use on rapidreboot.com that I'll share with you that you can put in those notes as well. That it'll probably just be the Glow podcast that you can use for a discount at rapidreboot.com.
Okay, cool. That sounds great. Well, thank you so much for coming on and educating us a little bit more about Rapid Reboot and kind of how that technology works. I really, really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, Taylor. Appreciate it. It's been a great time and fun to talk with you a little bit.
Thanks.